Hey there, Lisa here. Welcome to my channel. I hope you'll join me in my love of crafting and DIYs and hit that subscribe button. For today's video, I am making 4 little craft projects for St. Patrick's Day. Nearly all supplies can be picked up at your local Dollar Tree. All right, let's just jump right in and get to these projects. For this project, we're going to make a twine moss hat. You will need a hat form, twine, moss, ribbon in black and gold, hot glue gun, and scissors. I first dismantled the hat, which is always kind of fun for me. It was a little bit trickier than I thought, so I did need to grab the scissors, and then the bottom just sort of snaps off, and I thought that I could cover it with twine separate and then put it back together. This didn't end up working. I ended up having to glue it back together. I don't know if this was easier or to just try and cover it all in one piece, but anyways, this is what I did. I covered it up and down. I was going to leave the top open, so that's why I didn't finish. But anyways, what I end up doing is I end up going all the way around this part of the hat, and kind of in a messy way. And then I do the same thing with the bottom. And I just covered the whole. It just went quicker. I did end up using probably about 2 spools of the Dollar Tree twine on this. It took quite a bit to cover. I really did not anticipate it taking that long or that much, but anyways, it turns out pretty cute, so we're gonna go with it. The brim of the hat had the pegs around the edge, and so I went around and hot glued twine on top of them. It did take several passes to cover it, and then once I had that all done, then I glued the hat back together. And then I decided I wanted to cover the top instead of do what I was initially going to do. And so I just went around and around and glued until it was covered. At one point it was sort of off, so I would go one way and then turn around and go the other until I caught it back up. And then I finished going around and around until the complete thing was covered to my liking. And I ended up with, it was very thickly covered. You could probably use a lot less twine. And once that was done, I took some black ribbon for the hat band and just glued that on. And then this is the piece that came with it. And I decided just to make it the ribbon as well so that it would match. So I just glued ribbon over the top of it. It doesn't end up looking real great. You know, you could paint it or any number of different things you could do here. But this is what I went with. So then I glued that onto there, and then I took and added just a little bit of moss around the buckle, mostly because it was driving me crazy. That one corner especially was really uneven. And then I just added moss in some other places to finish it up. This project is a mini leprechaun gnome. Y'all, I've never made a gnome, let alone a teeny tiny one, but this is what I did. I used gloves and socks from the Dollar Tree, needle thread, hot glue gun, cotton balls, fake fur, bead, scissors, and a razor knife. You could also use any material you have on hand. And so the first thing I did was cut up my sock. And I cut the tip off of one of the mittens, and then I stuffed it with cotton, and then I just sewed the top shut so that the cotton wouldn't end up falling apart on me. Now, you could really hot glue this. I thought sewing was going to be easier, but it turned out to be harder because everything was so tiny. So here I am sewing the hat, and then flipping it, and then I stuff it with cotton as well. And you'll see later I end up not going with this hat. I end up covering it with another hat. Like I said, I've never made one of these, and so I was just kind of going with the flow. These, I had cut out these cute little booties and mittens, and I sewed them all together, but they were so tiny and I could not get them to attach to the arms correctly because they were so tiny. So I end up doing something completely different, but I left this in there so that you could kind of see that this is another way. If hot glue is not your thing, you can definitely needle and thread this, but it's hard. So then I cut just some long rectangular shapes out of the green for his legs and his arms, and here I am gluing one of the legs together. This one wanted to bend for some reason, so I just went with it. And then here I am gluing the arm together. And then I cut out the beard. With this fake fur, you want to make sure and use a razor blade and not scissors, because otherwise it cuts the fur and it looks weird. So then I glued his body to his legs, and I made him some more booties because the other ones because I sewed them shut, I couldn't get them to attach and look normally. Yeah, this was a learning experience. So I just took the tip of a mitten and cut it in half, and then shaped it, or then cut the top off so that I had the points for his shoes, and then I just hot glued it over the leg so that it sort of resembled boots. And then I repeat the process on the other side. Man, this was a little tedious work. I think if I were to make another one now, I have a pretty good feel for it and it would go much smoother. I probably should have made another one and recorded that, but you know, you're gonna learn with me, right? So then I did the same thing with the mittens, only I didn't have a point. I just kind of made them a dull end. So I basically just took a rectangle and wrapped it around the back and glued it so that he had mittens. And then I glued on his beard. And then I took a bead and I glued whole side down. So you can see the other hole is showing there, but we are going to cover that with his hat. Then I took and cut the band out of the sock and glued it over the hat. And this is where I decided I didn't really like the hat. And so here I am cutting another one. So I folded over the bottom and made it a smooth edge. And then I just glue this hat. I glue it on the front and then I glue it on the back. And I didn't end up putting cotton in this one because I kind of wanted that more floppy look. So then I took some dental floss and tied off the hat, finished gluing it in the back, and then I just lopped it over the way I wanted it, and then I just trimmed the edges. There you go. There he is. For this project, we're going to make a little mini floral arrangement using a mini terracotta pot, paint or paint markers in green, black, and gold, some fake flowers of choice, hot glue gun, paintbrush, and painter's tape, although I didn't end up really needing that. So the first thing I did was I lightened this green just a little bit by adding a little bit of white, and then I gave the pot a good first coat, and then I went over it and gave it a second coat. Next, this is where I say you don't really need the painter's tape. I didn't end up using it. You just can't get it on so that it's straight. So I ended up leaving it on there and painting the pot black from there down to the lip. And I gave it a good couple of coats. So I'm sorry about the rest of the video, but my phone holder broke. So I'm doing the best I can here. Next, because my tape job didn't work well because, you know, of the shape of the pot, I went around with green over a couple coats, just freehanding it to make that black band a little bit thinner. And then I took a pencil and sort of drew my buckle in kind of where I wanted it, and then I used a gold paint marker. This is actually the one from the Dollar Tree, and I really like it. And then traced over it, and then just thickened the edges until I thought it looked sort of like a buckle. And so here I am just sort of going around and thickening those edges. Next, I took my florals and I took 2 of each of the flowers and then 2 of the clover. All 6 of those did not fit down in the hole in the pot, so I combined them first with a little bit of floral tape. So I combined each flower with its mate with a little bit of floral tape. And once I had that all done, then I added in the clovers. And then I used some twine to sort of hold them all together so that they would stay the way I wanted. And then I took the hot glue gun and glued it into place. And then I took and glued some moss on the top. Oh yes, and then I trimmed off the excess moss. And then it was done. You'll have to let me know what you think in the comments. This is probably my favorite project in the video. Burlap and moss clover. You need a clover form from the Dollar Tree or wherever else you might find one. I had this MDF clover from another project from last year. They still have these though. Moss, burlap, hot glue gun, and scissors. So first I covered the bottom with twine. I just hot glued, went around in circles until I got it the way I wanted. I was initially going to cover this whole thing with twine, but it was really testing my patience. So I ended up doing the stem. And then I took this other piece that I had was part of another sign that I used last year, and I glued that on the back, and then I covered it in burlap because it was just way easier to cover. Like, I don't know what the deal was. My patience was being tested, and I'm kind of glad it was because I love the way that this ends up turning out. So I just hot glued some burlap around it, and then I cut out the front part and glued the edges down just so that you could see that clover shape, and so that there was burlap along the inner edge of the clover there. And so, like I said, I just cut and glued, and then I added some hot glue and I filled it with moss, and that is it. The moss loved to stick to the burlap, but that's it. And I love the way it turned out. You have to let me know what you think in the comments. All right, so that's it. That's my 4 little projects. What do you think? What are your favorites or favorite? You'll have to let me know in the comments. Are any of these anything that you would ever want to duplicate? I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to spend watching my video. I sure hope you enjoyed it. If you do, be sure to hit that subscribe button, leave me a like, shoot me a comment, and share with your friends. Thanks so much. Thanks so much. Again, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe.